An old tyre, a wooden table, a few plastic buckets that might otherwise have been thrown away. None of that sounds like a farm. And in the village of Keur Ngoré, Senegal, this is exactly where dinner is growing. Lettuce rises from a tabletop. Chilies push up from pots. Aubergines grow beside recycled tyres. Cultivable space is limited here. So the real question isn't how to grow more food. It's where you'd even put a garden at all. The answer turns out to be smaller and far more carefully organized than it first looks. First, the boundary. These gardens do not end hunger. They do not provide every calorie a family needs. But for some women in Keur Ngoré, they change something just as important. Where fresh vegetables can come from, and who has the ability to grow them. In 2026, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization documented the work of women in 3 Senegalese villages. 30 community microgardens had been established. 159 women were trained as trainers, including 56 young women. The idea behind it was stubbornly simple. When access to fields is limited, build a growing surface somewhere else. Jim Diop described the difference through an ordinary journey. Her family, she said, hardly needed to travel into town for vegetables anymore. Mané Diop told a similar story. Food they once bought in town was now available closer to home. Kudia Diop remembered her own surprise. Vegetables on tables in pots inside tyres. She hadn't thought this could actually work. Then the plants grew anyway. That surprise is exactly where the real mechanism starts, because a garden isn't only an area of soil. It's a way of arranging light, roots, water, and time. And once you see it that way, you start noticing how much of an ordinary growing area isn't occupied by crops at all. Part of the ground becomes a path. Plants get spaced out for machinery, or just for people to walk between rows. A microgarden strips that empty geometry away. Containers sit close together. Climbers move upward instead of outward. Roots occupy one layer while leaves reach into another, stacked like floors in a building. The plants aren't producing more because they're small. The system is using more of the space around them. But space alone isn't the whole answer. There's a second limit, and it's the one that's easiest to get wrong. Light. A leaf can only turn sunlight into new growth when light actually reaches it. Pack plants too tightly, and one canopy can deprive the next of the light it needs. Arrange them carefully, and crops of different heights can share a small footprint without every leaf fighting for the same layer of sun. This is why a tiny garden behaves less like a miniature field and more like living architecture. Height matters, direction matters, so does the angle of the sun as it moves across the sky. And then there's a dimension you'd never spot in a still photograph: time. A plot harvested once may remain empty before the next planting. In an intensively managed garden, a finished crop can be replaced. Fast-growing leaves come out, new seedlings go in. Different plants mature and are harvested on different schedules. The same square meter gets used again and again, not all at once, but across the whole calendar. Here's the part that surprised us most while researching this. Keur Ngoré isn't actually where Senegal's microgarden story began. Roughly 70 kilometers west in Dakar, the method has a much longer history. There, rapid urban growth placed a different pressure on the same basic problem: too little growing space. The program began in 1999, when that pressure made fresh produce harder to reach for many vulnerable residents. People improvised. Discarded materials became parts of a new growing system. Wooden shipping boxes became trays. Ground nutshells and rice husks became substrate. Buckets, basins, polystyrene fish boxes, and tyres became containers. And FAO report gives one compact example of what such a system could produce. In Dakar, a 3-square-meter microgarden yielded either 11 kilograms of lettuce or 4.5 kilograms of carrots in less than 2 months. Before you get too excited by that number, it needs guardrails. That's one crop, one system, one place. It's not a promise that every 3-square-meter garden anywhere will match it. Measured home garden yields vary enormously. Climate changes them. So do crop choice, available light, water, fertility, pests, and the length of the growing season. And there's one factor easy to miss in a harvest photograph: human attention. These gardens have to be built by hand. Seeds have to be raised. Water and nutrients have to reach the roots. Substrate has to be prepared or purchased. Each crop has to be watched, harvested, and replaced at the right moment. Small space can concentrate care. Smaller plots can receive more intensive attention. But that doesn't remove the need for it. The Senegalese programs also depended on something larger than any one person's effort. Agricultural technicians trained participants. Women learned to train other women. Groups organized growing spaces, shared knowledge and maintained the system after the first seedlings were planted. Fatou Diop, who chairs the Anligai group in Keur Ngoré, described that collective effect. The project brought women and men in the village together. And Ligoi means, let us work together. It may be the most honest explanation for how the harvest becomes possible. The plants do bring their own extraordinary machinery to it. Roots search a narrow volume of substrate for water and minerals. Leaves turn light and air into sugars. Stems lift new growth toward the sun. But none of that decides where a tyre gets placed, when a seedling gets transplanted, or who carries the water on a dry day. That part is entirely human. Abundance here is biological and organized. Remove either half and the whole system changes. That distinction matters, because the weight of a vegetable harvest is not the same thing as food security. Lettuce adds freshness and nutrients to a meal, but 11 kilograms of lettuce can't be treated as 11 kilograms of staple calories. A microgarden can supplement a family's diet. It can't by itself erase poverty or replace a complete food system. Its real value is quieter than that. For the women documented in Keur Ngoré, fresh vegetables became available closer to home. In the wider Senegalese programs, surplus produce could also be sold. A person with little access to land could still decide what to plant, when to harvest, and who to teach next. The garden hands back a measure of agency, not through a miracle, but through a sequence of small, deliberate controls over space, light, and time. Back in Keur Ngoré, the most revealing object in the whole story might still be that old tyre. It doesn't become farmland. It stays exactly what it is, a small circle with a hard rubber edge, and yet inside that boundary, roots spread, leaves unfold, and vegetables grow closer to home. A tiny garden can't remove the limits around a family's life. What it can do is show you just how much life a pair of careful hands can arrange within them. If that's a story worth remembering the next time you see an old tyre sitting in a yard, save it and subscribe for the next one. Until next time.